Here in the December 15 turn, the weather turned foul again. We got snow, and that's a problem because it increases the attrition value. It causes, the weirdness with the movement because of the visibility or whatever. In terms of being able to sneak up on someone so they can't get away and reducing pursuit advantages. And then it also interferes with the French and Prussian artillery, which is problematic, but the French feel like they have to attack now. They're facing Bennigsen here, and if they're going to attack there, well, they want to attack here too. Some of their forces are big, so they're going to take their op-int card. They're going to take one that doesn't have a 0+ on the 6 to 9 column in the hopes of moving forward. They're pretty close to the enemy in most cases. They don't have anything tricky like the envelopments or stuff. They're going to have to deal with these, redoubts, but that's life. Over here, what I'm going to do is be clever, which I'm not likely. So remember, I don't know any of these forces, but I can scout them out, and then with a cav unit, or best of all, if I have extra, I only have one right now, use the vedette, and then I can retreat before combat with that, so that's kind of cool. The cav maybe not retreat before combat as easily. I think they're stopped by other cav units. That's normal in the system, but I have to hunt that rule down. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to face this. Well, actually, Bennigsen's already. Oh, geez. I may be facing as big a force as I possibly can. I don't know, but I also do know that this line is most of the forces. That only the reinforcements coming in under Buxhausen have them. But if I'm gonna break through, I better do it soon before Buxhausen gets up there, right? That's my thinking, at least. All right, I don't think I'm going to be playing many movement commands. I'm going to rely on initiative to try to get me into place. What I'm doing here, I actually did activate one because I have this conflagration card, which is going to cause extra... Oh, shit. Auguro doesn't have guns. Damn it. Okay, maybe I'm not. Does Lon have guns? No. All right, I got to rethink. Sorry. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I got some way of getting through. No, I don't. All right, so we can't do this yet either. Crap. Back to what I was trying to say. I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to move him up here, and I'm going to try to repulse this. Well, I find out who the leader is. I don't find out anything useful with strength. But when I find out that the leader is a vedette, right? I know that I'm safe in trying to repulse it with something else. So that's good enough. That's essentially a failure. But now I can try to move Napoleon and do a repulse. And I succeed in moving him. Now he's only got 2 movement points. So one here, geez, repulse is going to cost me an extra movement point. This was pointless. Yeah, I can't do this because I don't have the extra movement. I try to show something, and I can't keep everything in mind well enough except to say, oh fuck, I fucked up again, which is why I shouldn't even be doing these fucking videos. Now I looked it up, it doesn't cost extra movement, so I can come in here and try to repulse. Now I've got Napoleon, who's got Ney, who has, oh gee, I probably wanted to assign him some strength points. So he was at 4, 5, 6 before, oh, I've got artillery there. 5, 6 there. I'm going to move him up to 9 because the 6 to 9 chart is what I'm on. And, well, it's a vedette, so I repulse it. So it's an infantry vedette, so it just runs away. And I don't know how far it runs. A couple hexes, who knows? I retreat a hex. Okay, well, if I retreat a hex, I'm under another unit and I disappear, but at least that gets me out of the way. And I'm under Major General 2 now, I guess. Wherever he is. Okay, so that allows me to move Napoleon to here. I can't declare a repulse there. I don't have the movement points to get in there. So now let's see if Bessier... Can I command Bessier? Probably, but I don't know. I've got 4 for Davout, and Bessier, although he's a marshal, is over under the Major General, so that puts it to 7. Yeah, I can command Bessier. So whatever this is, I can probably command it all. And we're in there and prepared to make the attack. As the units are all theoretically flipped over and hidden, I had no idea, because the Prussians were moving around, but I can't, you know, I can't pay attention clearly to what they're doing. I think that would be a violation of the spirit of the game, to watch every single move. So vaguely I have the idea there is a Prussian force around here, but I don't know if I'm facing it. So I had to use the vedette to try to scout that out. Now I feel like I probably have numeric superiority, I have leadership superiority, la la la. So, you know, I'm in pretty good shape trying to make that attack. I realized something, my griping about these cards, and it's still valid because that's the rules as written, but I think you could actually fix this by, instead of using these pluses in quite the way they're used, somehow use a column shift in the play of the card. I think that would create close to the same results that the regular game does. And I suspect there are a lot of things like that, that they just didn't try to align the two systems to give the same results, which I find weird. Anyway, now I have a hard problem. Yeah, a lot of hard problems in this game. Well, in this case, I don't think I can bring Buxhowden in, no matter what I play. So now the question is, well, what kind of reaction cards are of use? Can I get Barclay over there? 1, 2, 3. That's going to be sack, and he's trying, and this is the kind of thinking you have to do throughout this. So that's going to be sack, and he's trying to, okay, I've got too many troops here, because I have Osterman under me. Oops. I'm over fucking stacked again. Unless there's a Barclay counter. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't know what I did and why. I don't know. I don't know that Osterman's supposed to be there. He may have bumped from somewhere. But, yeah, I don't know what the hell happened. So I'm going to dump him out. And I'm not going to put him any closer because the French would be cheated if that's the case. In which case maybe Barclay can take command of something, but he's got 3.5 of his 4 capacity, so he's not going to be able to do anything unless it's to come into here. And now forced marches, you're not affected by vedettes, but you don't know that's a vedette. So it's like you can't plan for that being a vedette, and I don't quite know what happens if you like force march into a space and there's a vedette and there's a non-vedette there. I guess that's something I ought to look up, because you know, if I'm going to waste a good card though to move Barclay, 4 movement points or whatever. That's a pretty expensive movement there. And then on top of that, he's got no cav. Okay. If he had cav with him, it would screw up the movement points, and he may not be able to do it anyway, even with the normal 4-point card. But basically, the thing is, if I want to move 4 movement points, I've got to use a card that probably has a higher attrition value on it as my reaction card. And I don't know that I want to do that, but on the other hand, oh, I know what I can do. I can repulse with my vedette. Sure. Yeah, but I can't do that until I make my card choice. I'm stuck choosing what my reaction card is on that. And I still haven't looked through them to see if I have a 4-point card. But yeah, I've got to get out of here. I don't think that's possible, though, not with Napoleon there. It's a a mentally difficult enough system in the Napoleon at Bay setup, not because of the rules, but because of all these different little weird little things, like the initiative comparison. Okay, my active leader's got a 1 to a 5. That's a +2. I'm not getting out of there. Not unless I had an event already pre-played for him to give him a withdrawal. And given the situation, I'm pretty sure I don't want to move up there. Lestat can't get into that hex anyway, because that would be an illegal force. So I'm kind of screwed there. And it doesn't really look like I'm going to be able to reinforce here. So I could just say screw it, because the force I want to get into play, Buxhowden, is too big to really safely force march in bad weather. So I think I'll just not look through the cards. Which means we go to battle. Alright, let's do the easy one first. We haven't seen much in the way of battles. So Napoleon is capable of taking Bessier under his wing along with Ney. So he can combine the two for a fight. Now, I don't have the capability to do a pitched battle. The Prussians do, and they really don't want to, because if they lose all their units, it goes to a pursuit battle anyway, and they're almost certain to lose that. That's Major General 2. He probably has 1 strength point on him. So, what do? We find the sequence of battle. Is there cav? I don't know, maybe. Where's Ney? Ney's got cav. So he's got a cav bonus, which means something. I don't remember what anymore. I don't think there's any artillery here, but there may be. We can't be sure. Bessier may have some with him, I know. He's just got cav with him, doesn't he? Yeah. Okay. So we have a lot of cav. Does Ney? Ney's got an artillery. Okay. So we've got an artillery bombardment with only 1 strength point, and we've got a +1 penalty, so we're not going to get a bonus there. Interesting. The die roll has a spot for 0, but it doesn't have a spot for the 7. Am I mistaken? No, that's +1. Okay. I was wondering if maybe somehow bad weather helped French and Prussian artillery, which would seem crazy. All right, so the artillery fire is not going to do anything, which means we look for combat odds. Okay. That's pretty easy. We just have to find our leaders again. Bessier's got 3, 4, we don't count the artillery, and 6 is 10. To Prussian Major General 2 is 1. Okay. So we got 10 to 1. We're both doing pursuit battles, I guess. I don't know. Now we look for a combat table. Oh, shit. Dispatch distance is only 12. I've been counting more, haven't I? Ah, fuck. I've probably been cheating completely. Shh. Yeah, I think I've been counting out to like 21 or something, which means I've just been completely cheating, because this thing... only gets me to there. Yeah. All right. Well, how about that? Yeah, I forgot about it and kept looking here and seeing, you know, these 21s and everything on this chart. And then, I don't know where else it's listed, but yeah, I forgot that the dispatch distance is really low in this game for everyone. Huh. Oh, well. Why do we play? Right, so we do the attack if I can find a table. Alright, 10 to 1, whatever. Other modifiers, I don't know. We got a leader bonus, that's -1. It's not a failed repulse. Okay, so we get a 6. So this has to retreat 6 hexes. Well, it's running away. Now I get to pursue it, and theoretically this wouldn't happen at the same time, but it doesn't matter because the 2 battles are so separated. And we got a 5 against a 1. That's not going to be a modifier, so we got a 5 against a 6 length of... Wait, what's this shit? This is length of hexes, or is this length of, I don't know. 6, yeah, this is the resulting length. Are there any modifiers? No resistance, old guard rounds, cap differential +1. No, -1. So I get to chase at 6 hexes, but I only have the capability to chase at 1. This is destroyed. Whoever he is gone. The vedette is not gone. It gets to run 4 hexes, so it's up with Lafag or whatever. And this is a dead unit. Who'd I just lose? R. Is R a leader? I hope not, because he's got that in play. Okay, well, I've been cheating left and right, it would seem. So, yeah, that's that. I want to take a break before I deal with that, because I'm sweating. It's fucking hot here. Okay, so here our combat is kind of more complicated by the fact that we have attacks in 2 different places. So let's take Lan's attack on Sakin first. Now, we only do the first round of this and see how that works out. So when we look at Lan, he's got no cav, Sakin has no cav. We're looking at 5 to 3, which is just 1 to 1 in this game. And Sakin is in clear terrain. And I think that's all we have, except Lan has a star. It's non-affecting. Okay, we get a lousy 5, which means we get a 2 to 1 with the attacker losing. We were unable to do a pitched battle. I don't know what the defender did, right? It doesn't really matter. So now we have our retreat, and we get to see Sakin's got a 4 versus a 5. Initiative, we gotta find this. Active leader 4 versus 5. He's got a +2 to the die roll, another +1 due to the yucky weather. So I don't know what he needs. That's +3 to the die roll. On a 4 for 2. On a 1 he gets like a hex. He does not. So we each take 1 loss there. Okay. And there's no advance because I didn't roll well enough. But the other attack here, now he's got a redoubt essentially. This is Benningsen. He's got artillery too and cav. So he's got 2 cav versus Davu, who has auguro, who has no cav. So that gives him a bonus, I believe, on the artillery table. But that may only be for attacking. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to give him the bonus. Yeah, it's either way. Okay. So Benningsen has 3 strength points of artillery. It's Russian artillery, so it's not affected by the snow because they like the cold. And I get a -1 on the table. So I do a hit to Davu and Auguro. I'll take it over on Davu, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to decide because let's take it on Auguro. See, we don't really want him to lose his whole core, though. That's the danger. Okay, now strength-wise, we're attacking and affecting terrain in a town where they can pitch battle all the time. Davu's got to take a retreat. We don't want to lose the town as the Russians. So we're going to stay there. And Davu is at 8. And Benningsen is at 3, 5, 10. So it's 1 to 2 in affecting terrain. Both leaders have a star, so that cancels out. And the French take a 3 to 1. Now, here's the problem. I don't really want to leave, but I don't have to leave with everything, except I have no subordinate that I can drop off. I haven't set up a subordinate yet. I can't even drop a major general or something to hold that position. So essentially both sides are going to take one hit here. And if I can find Bennigsen. Wow. Where did he go? Is that him? Yeah. Tiny little... He's only got 3 strength point units maximum. I can discard this because it's not going to have another effect. And I don't want to, I don't want to lose the hex because this is the victory point hex and I'm building up defenses around it. So I'd rather just let the French get away with an easy loss. Neither of those losses is going to be critical. And we flip over to the Russian side of the turn. I'm having a hellish time with other things than the game, which doesn't help either. Some computer gadget problem. Let's make things simple. So the Russians play their one-time event, the army commander, to get rid of Buxhausen. He's just causing nothing but problems. Now that caused his forces to be dispersed a bit, but so be it. The card goes back in here, the event is gone. It should be pretty obvious because Buxhausen no longer exists, but it could get confusing with some of those. I used the activation to move Lestock. I'll try to figure out how and if I can move my French operations center forward anywhere. I've got a real problem with that, which is that these guys are out of command, these guys are out of command. Now I can kind of sit back with the with Napoleon's force. They're all in supply actually, because the depot here is sufficient and the depot back here is sufficient. So since mainly I've been using one command to operate, it really hasn't been too big a deal and the initiative chances are pretty high, so I probably haven't cheated too badly. Bennigsen, even though it's bad weather, I think can finish his entrenchments. He just couldn't start them under those conditions and nobody else started them. He took a lot of reinforcements because this is a key city in the game. And in fact, I don't know. I didn't move Sac and I'm thinking I might want to. Simply for the fact that I want to have a better defensive position, but I'm really afraid of moving here because I'll be so exposed and Sac alone would get hit. So I think I have to leave that town open, much as I don't like it. The French just passed, partially because I don't want to look at the cards, but also because it's lousy weather, man. I don't want to spend a good card on bad weather when it's not really... It doesn't seem terribly vital because by a good card I mean a low attrition card. Granted, they only work in bad weather, but and it kind of doesn't hurt me to take a bad weather card, but I feel like I have to figure out what's going on with that center of operations before I go any further. So I'll just delay, which seems like a good plan in general. Okay, so on the French side of the turn, we rolled the weather. It's snow again here in December 18th. Got some more reinforcements. I'm not sure why Soule didn't move last time. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he didn't get a initiative on the one time he had a chance. So the center of operations. Movement rules for this are completely different from everything else in this series. I just had them up, but here we go. Now, what's weird here is I had a card which said you could move the center of operations, which kind of led me to worry that I need to find a card to do it, and the French don't have one. That doesn't seem to be the case. It looks to me like you can activate them with any card. They get 4 movement points. It moves like Cav. It may always move without requiring a movement command, so you don't need a card anyway. So I don't know why that card talked about it. And it has almost no effect. You can just move it. It doesn't flip over. There's no problems with reestablishing the line of communications. Actually, that makes a little bit more sense to me. One of the things I didn't like about the older design was you couldn't push your center of operations forward, and it moved very slowly, and basically reallocating your center of ops was a really expensive and painful process. So it's something I didn't tend to do very often. However, I think the 2X rules keep that. I'm not positive, but I don't remember seeing anything weird like, hey, the center of operations can move for free every turn, which is what it appears to be on the cards. So again, a difference in the intention of the rules. Now, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me why that decision was made and not conformed through both rules. 42, 55, 92. Probably here. No, that's about reinforcement. You can never tell where any given rule is going to be. There. That's line of communication. I don't know where the rules on moving this thing are going to be. I don't know, but I can't keep flipping through the rule book hoping to find them. And that's so often the problem. Alright, well, you know, I was kind of excited for a moment there, but not being able to find a rule that I need in a couple of quick minutes is really a problem. But there's something else here. The depots, I'm allowed to trace my dispatch distance from the depots. So actually I haven't been cheating. The center of operations is there for a couple of reasons. I guess if you don't have depots that you control, so this counts as a depot because it's a supply source as well. I guess if you don't have a depot around, you need the center of operations to go there. But you can kind of capture the depots on the way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, so that's going to be within range of striking distance. If I get that, then I can keep pushing on. So the center of operations loses a lot of its old importance, and I have depot back here, so I'm all fine. The only thing, it does two things. One is it's kind of a mobile depot. So if you're in some place where you're having trouble getting a depot and for some reason you're cut off, maybe you need to move your center of operations there. And the other thing is it generates your cards by sticking next to your supply source. Theoretically, I probably want to move it. I can't find the rule on how to move it in the original rules. You know, I've found it in most of the games usually, but since I'm not using these rules for almost anything, they basically are all overwritten to some degree or another. Combat's not. That's kind of the new stuff. But yeah, I simply cannot find any rules on moving the center of operations here. And I'm sure they're tucked in a sentence somewhere. Maybe it's just they can move every turn, which would actually conform with the current, with the set that I'm using, the card play set. The center of operations no longer needing command points in the basic game. And I'm not quite sure how that works, but has been deleted. And that's why there are no rules for moving it. So, okay. This is the kind of thing, actually, that this is the cost, or part of the cost to me doing videos, is I say something and then I have to look it up. When I'm playing the game back in the old days, and I don't know if I could even fucking bother to play games like this anymore, if it weren't for the vids. If I'm playing the game solo, and because it's always duty that rolled me anyway, but if I'm playing the game solo by myself, not vidding, I don't bother to look something like that up. I don't really care that much. I might do one quick scan to see if I can find it. But once I start talking about it, I have to have the answer, right? It's just the verbalization aspect. If I was sitting here chatting with someone, I would, and that comes up, I would have to look it up and try to find it. And there goes whatever conversation, whatever. That's just the kind of person I am, whatever. So, you know, I don't know where the fuck I am now after having hunted that down, but... and you could say, well, you know, dude, people have said this, stop bidding if you're hating it, you know. But then I wouldn't game, and gaming is all the fucking thing, it's the only thing I have in my life, basically, you know, other than work. I enjoy my work. Everything else I want to hide from. Everything else is just horrible in my life, so... Just a couple more things. The French played a card that, it looks pretty good if you get cut off as a way to escape from that, but it allowed me to move some of my bigger stacks without attrition, which is the whole thing. And it's funny because you can't make that kind of plan in the base game, and I don't know which one I like better. I don't know if I know in terms of gameplay, in terms of the mechanisms and having to cope with them, which I like better. But there's something that makes sense about, okay, you know, I can devote these specific resources to being able to, you know, move most of my forces, but that means I won't be able to pull that off every turn. So there's something I do like about the cards. It's not like I'm completely negative about what they provide. And I think if they had been worked a little bit more carefully, they could have actually mimicked the main system a little better. The Russians responded with this card as their core reaction card, mainly because they didn't have, first of all, it's a sortie, we're not in a siege yet, although that may be coming soon, because there's nothing in the way of Danzig here. But I think the weather's too lousy to start a siege. You can't lay the parallels down. I mean, I could mask, but you can't lay the parallels down when it's cold weather. Although this goes, I don't know, anyway. And it wasn't important that I moved big forces this turn, because I broke up Buxhowden, right? So, the French, Napoleon marched up, ran into a Cav Major General who was able to skittle away. And, what do we have here? The other forces probed to find another vedette. Well, I didn't really want to fight it. I don't know why. I would have been at a penalty, but it's not like either of us really loses anything, so I'm not really sure. But I certainly didn't want to fight it with my Cav, but Rap's coming up. He's got a few more strength points. We still wouldn't, yeah, we'd have enough to be able to push it out of the way. Some of the other leaders moving forward. Hey, I started moving this, though it barely matters in this in the exclusive rules, or at all, because it doesn't exist in the other. Over here, the not a lot of movement by the French trying to break out in some way, but the Russians are increasing their cordon, and this was really the key to why I played the card that I did, because I've broken units into smaller forces, so I don't really have a huge force that I need to move. Bennigsen is pretty big. One thing I noticed is I can't build redoubts with a major general. Now, I don't think I did this, but I think I sort of tried at one moment and then found that, hey, the weather's lousy or something. I have an interesting card here, which is probably what the Russians are going to play next, which is throwing Scharnhorst into Lestak, which gives him his better Lestak counter which has a star and can actually command some units and such not. This is very cool because Lestock's been incapable of doing anything because of his low rating. But it does kind of point out one of the problems that a lot of these card-driven games have, which is that you end up with rules, with counters and pieces and such not, that maybe you don't have all the rules to. So for example, in the rule book, so for example, the Lestock piece, I was looking at that and saying, well, I have no idea, and the same with Poniatowski, I have no idea when and how these come into play. I'll cross my fingers and hope that they're in the cards. Now that works fine when the rules are really, really clear, obvious, clean, easy to access, and you know you haven't missed anything. It doesn't work so well when we're talking about something like this, where the rules are somewhat harder to be certain that you've gotten everything. For example, you know, and by clean and clear, I mean I can understand and retain all the information on a fairly quick reading of the rules, okay? That's just my criteria for what a clean set of rules is. Because I don't like to read every, you know, necessarily every single line in the rules, especially if they're bloated. You know, the more you start adding to try to clarify rules, the more you cannot add little throwaway lines that have anything important in them. Anyway, this counter and Poniatowski are just not even in the rule book. But the point is that I have no assurance that on my reading of especially a rule book that sets up rules and then reverses them elsewhere, that I've got a fairly good grasp on everything that's happening. As we've seen, I do not. And that's not unusual. It makes it very difficult to approach a new game when you can't be sure. Now, next time I play, I'll know Lestock is on a card. But, you know, when I'm first setting it up, I'm scratching my head. It's hard enough to set this game up without that kind of additional problem in it. And that kind of thing always adds a question. Man, those should just be called out somewhere. You know, a list of, hey, here's some pieces that you don't need in your setup, but they're accessed by some cards. And that's fine. All right. Russian side of the turn, not much happened. They played their Chief of Staff card. This allows them to move some of their slowest things. Yeah, this gives them the Lestock upgrade. Hey, that's great. The weather's too lousy to dig in any further. I started my center of ops moving to get it out of the way. I mean, there's no, I don't really need it up here at all. I'm kind of abandoning the territory up here, including things like the fortress at Elbling. But, you know, I don't have any troops. The Russians have the whole force, and it's concentrated down there, pinning the French in pretty good fashion. Napoleon is free to move, but he doesn't have that many leaders in place, so he's not spanning all over the place. Plus, I'm not entirely sure how many troops the Prussians have. I know it's not that many, but I don't have all that many. Anyway, very little movement over here. Attempts at initiative. I don't want to spend additional cards when I don't have to. I don't want to think about it too much. There's nothing really key right now is also the issue. I'd like to cover these spaces where I have some vedettes, but I don't see the French breaking out in that direction as being terribly valuable. They've got to protect Warsaw. They can't let that fall. So they're kind of pinned in contact with the Russians. The only real danger is that the French come marching this way. And on that side, I thought real hard about Napoleon trying to force march in the sense of, you know, playing a card to get some of his forces moving up here. Especially Soule, who doesn't have a very big force. Unfortunately, Bernadotte has a big force. Rapp is under admin movement. There's just not a lot of strength that I'd be moving forward using a forced march. Napoleon can't really split his forces up at this moment. And most telling, I don't have a lot of cards that work well under bad weather or forced march conditions. I have one, which gives me a card draw. It's a forage card. I would rather not play it to move essentially, you know, one unit that I really kind of want to move. It just doesn't seem worth it. So, and this is somebody who moves likely on initiative. I have to play a card on my own turn, so, you know, we'll see it there. Alrighty. Okay, so the French drew a kind of interesting one-time only event, and they start reading it. The French player may not issue any movement commands this turn. Okay, well, whatever. Napoleon and any force in his hex may not move during this march and the next forced march phase. Okay. This is a prerequisite, though, for the Polish question. You see, everything, the attrition results are great, except the movement results are equally valuable. But this little star, no event if played as an op-in, immediately set off warning bells. Now, it is completely spelled out here in this thing, which says, if the French player plays card 4 after he uses other cards as movement commands in the same turn, the last played card prevails. I don't know what that means. But thus you play an op-int and move one force. Then you play this card for another force, and then you may not move any other force with MCs, but you may move a force by initiative, except for Napoleon and any force in his hex. Okay. It makes sense. The weather's terrible. It's rain and mud, which makes rivers more painful to cross, and really just is unpleasant. So I probably want to get this prerequisite out of my way. Make it the 24th of December. A little bit more maneuvering going on here. Also with the Russians slipping around. Oops. Trying to get Doctorow down. Now remember, I can't use major generals to entrench, which I tried to do here and then realized, no, I can't. I still want to hold that position for the defensive strength of it, but I really wish I could dig in. I don't have enough generals. Like Barclay could say leave Markov back here if I feel like that's a less threatened sector or whatever. But so many of my commanders are just major generals, and I'm just not able to entrench in quite the same way. But it seems like I've frozen the French where I am, which is really all I want to do. There's a victory point for that location. All the other important cities are kind of in bold capital letters. Well, capital letters, not bold. So they're a little easier to see. So these are the ones that affect the Paris morale. So far that hasn't budged. I can't move Bernadotte in this weather. I could conceivably, I guess, detach some of these people during the French turn. I can't do it during the forced march. I really don't like that, but I don't know. I wish I like the looser style that I was playing illegally. It very seldom had an effect, but because you kind of want to keep your troops together. But if you can spread out for your movement and reconsolidate, but the problem is, you know, if I take an example, DuPont. Well, let's see. Is there a DuPont on the thing? Yeah. So if I take DuPont and send him off on his own, he can command himself and one other unit. Well, he and Rival appear to be... Yeah, so I could conceivably break... there's people who don't have a major general under them. So I could break Bernadotte's force up and send DuPont with, you know, either the artillery or with Druid. And then I'd be able to move. So far I haven't been able to, so maybe I'll remember to do that when I have the opportunity, which is the next French turn. So I'm at the question of the redisposition of forces. I moved some units around. The French advancing, pushing against L'Estaque here. Down here, very little movement. Mainly, this is all initiative movement. I used my card to move a major general because I had to use a card, right? I don't know why this guy didn't move, but whatever. my strategic overgoal with the French is take Lestock out, move towards Danzig where I can lay siege at some point. The engineer card that I need for the to start sieges hasn't come up yet, so I have no problem throwing parallels. And send some force to try to relieve this cordon that's in place. Okay, great. Well, Lon is trying to scout out and see, hey, can I make breakthrough through here? And then maybe that means the Russians come in and try to trash Davout. I don't know. They can't really tell what's going on. All the counters are flipped, so it's a little... Okay. So I'm at the point where, hey, I just got an initiative. I tried to pull this major general out of the way. He's going to get trashed by Napoleon. I've got this other one here, Stockholm. Well, he got an activation, and this is what's killing me. He is sitting on a 1-strength unit that is him. He cannot subordinate himself to Lestock by the rules as written, as I understand them. Lestock has 3 command points used up. He's a 3 command point leader, but he's not. He's a 4 command point leader right now. Okay? If that unit, which represents him, was on its own, he could subordinate to Lestock. I can't move him I can move him next to Lestock, but that doesn't let me pick him up. I'm going to have to do the following if I want to incorporate him into Lestock. I have to move him next to Lestock or something. Move Lestock on top of that force. I can't even use like a March general, I would assume. Yeah, because that drains my units. And I just don't believe this. This is the thing that was smooth as butter in Napoleon at Bay, and I'm going to ignore the rules to this game and just allow myself to do a reorg at the end of movement, or whatever, which is going to allow me to move him into here with Lestock and dissolve him. And give me that extra strength point, which is what I needed. Because without it, well, even with it, I don't have enough strength points to entrench. Oh well. But at least I have a somewhat larger force. And do I want it actually? 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I do want the force together. So we'll call that good. But I'm trying to figure out, you know, what else. And I'll flip Lestock. He's not moving. He's in a fortress. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what, if anything, I want to actually do. I certainly want to move the cav, this cav, because it's not serving much purpose where it is. Honestly, the minor advantage that might become from consolidating forces like that is nothing compared to the fucking headache of trying to align forces, get the right forces together, and then find out, oh shit, no, I actually can't because my leader is too complicated to command right now. You know, I can't just dump troops that I knew I had in place because, and look, I got a big difference between these corps commanders dropping off troops to each other and some major general who happens to be named doing this, or unnamed. It really doesn't make a difference. Anyway, we had the fight. Napoleon beat up his thing, obviously, but he did take losses. There was something else I wanted to talk about. I don't remember what it is. But we'll be going over to the Russian side of the turn. Oh, yeah. So one other irritation little thing. So I found this this Rembau unit flipped over next to this major cav general whose cav got destroyed. Now, I don't know where the hell he's from. I suspect he's supposed to enter with Major General Cav and the reinforcements, but I couldn't find him there. And, I mean, obviously, this is something I set up notationally to remind me of what was supposed to be there, but I don't think that should actually be there. I obviously flipped up it's something in the future, but I have to track that down, so that's going to take me quite a bit of time as to why that's there. Normally, you know, if a unit was on the board or something and it got in there by mistake, hey, tough titties, you're never going to see that. I'll tell you this much. I like the strategic situation that's developed here. I've got this tough choice with the Russians. How long can I sit there while, you know, the Prussians get abused by Napoleon? Eventually this is going to turn out very badly for the Russians if they just sit there. I still can't figure out a reason to go into cantonment. Not a serious one, at least. Pulling all your units off the board and giving a victory point to the French doesn't seem like a really good trade-off for getting nothing. And that's really what it is. It would make sense if it took you out of the attrition loop and you were suffering bad attrition if you weren't in your winter canton. But there's nothing like that in this game, especially with the card-based one. Oh, here was another one. So I was wrong a little bit about the cards. I expressed it as, hey, you're going to get the same losses no matter what, just based on the card. It's not quite the case. There's an example that, no, not the actual rule, that's ambiguous. There's an example that shows that every single instance that triggers a plus takes effect, which means that if there's a plus, I'm going to take not just one attrition, which I'm loath to do and I think I've not done, but I'm going to take multiple attritions. Oh, here's another one. You may have noticed a while back that Ney had like 6 strength points, and I'm like, oh, I can't move Ney because of that. Well, I was cheating. He can only hold 5. Again, this is something that got added to the system back in the 80s, which was giving individual strength points to the units. I feel like it adds very little to the game and probably doesn't actually represent reality because of detachments and such like that. I think the game's too strict on maintaining the hierarchy in the sense that, like, you know, I can't have some general come under there because the general, this major general, has an independent command supposedly at that point. You know, what? No. not when you're facing, you know, the overall commander on the field. No. You don't get away with that. You could, and I can see if they had written the rules so that it dealt only with the important commanders and said, look, you can't, you know, transfer commands and stuff unless there's someone who can take command of it all, and that's fine. All right. On, I guess, to the Russian side. So I looked up Rembau. He starts on the map over in Lebau. Hey, what's up with that? This is the infantry component of his command. I'm going to ditch it. He lost the cav. I'm not sure whether or not he should keep the infantry, but I can't justify it staying around. So that's going to go away. And so, talking a little bit again about the unit sizes. You know, I don't mind them in the sense of, historically, yeah, you can make an argument. I think you're kind of making a hand-waving argument to do what I'm doing, which is saying, yeah, well, units were detaching and attaching forces. The truth is there are certain units that were larger and that stayed larger throughout the campaigns. And I can understand the desire to express that. It becomes a fiddly and annoying little element of the game. And that's what I dislike about it so much. And you know, I would say let's loosen up a little bit on, you know, getting that level of detail in the unit commands. Of course, I'm a person who generally doesn't feel like this is a system that should have individual units. Like Der Weltkrieg, I think it would be fine to just say, you know, let's just assign strength points to the leaders. The individual units, you're allowed to transfer troops between them. The only thing you're not allowed to do, like, I mean, seriously, I can take Saint Hilaire, I can take one of his strength points and move it to Legrand, and it's fine, you know. They are an annoyance as an overhaul. I would say give each commander a strength point rating he can command, you know. The problem with that, of course, is there's a certain level of because you have the subordinate commanders, so you know you'd have to kind of tweak the system around a little bit more, but it would save counters. It would simplify the game in terms of mechanisms, and I don't think you lose that much. Some people would say, oh no, I want every single named unit, you know, divisional size on the board. I want this, that, and the other. I don't mind it too much if you let me be flexible enough with them.
But when you start having to track the strength points on each unit, it starts getting kind of obnoxious in a way that certainly Napoleon at Bay has no reason to be enforcing the per unit commands. Here, they're by taking it further, and that's so much of the system. It's like Napoleon at Bay could have gone two ways, right? It could have simplified a little bit, streamlined play, and you end up with maybe a game that actually ends up too simple, ends up feeling too generic. Or it could have done what it did, which is start adding all kinds of detail to cover, not special cases, but to cover a level of detail that that Napoleon at Bay didn't cover, in terms of, you know, individual units having strength points, I don't know what else, the vedettes, stuff like that. How much was added? Well, I don't know. If you kind of abstract a lot of it away, like I ignore half the rules on vedettes and just bounce them off things to find out what they are. Part of that's because I'm playing solo, and I'm just trying to justify why I can attack something, you know? Hey, what's here, right? It more or less works out that way, but there are some subtleties that I'm missing because of it. And I think that's what I just have to do, is I have to come to my own understanding of like what works for me. With the cards, I'm getting kind of used to them. I'm doing what I didn't want to do. If I find one that works, I play it. You know, screw it, man. But I'm also getting used to them. There's a lot of repetition among the cards. So once you get a couple of turns under your belt, they become a lot less obnoxious. The fact that they don't produce the same results is still the case. You know, I mean, there are forces that I simply could not move in wintertime. In wintertime in a forced march, even if they were tiny, you know. The only problem is when you start either getting out of supply or run down to less than 5 cards maybe. But almost everything that has you in command allows you to move whatever the speed of the card is. You know, this is a 2-point movement allowance card, but there are 4s, 5s, there's 6s and 8s that allow you to move as long as you keep your force size below 6. If you ever increase your force size above 6. And I mean, maybe that's more reasonable, right? And the game says, hey, if you're force size below 2, you never suffer attrition, right? So I don't know, but in terms of a consistent model is what I'm saying. More reasonable in terms of reality. Nah, you know, 10 guys alone in the woods, in the cold, in the rain, they might stop being 10 guys pretty quickly, not because they've eaten each other or one starved to death, but because they just say, fuck it, you know? Inside of the turn here was another maneuver turn. Not our coalition, not much happening. We wanted to dig in, but we can't. Send some extra troops over to the Prussians, but it looks so hopeless there. I don't know what we can do. We've got such a solid position here. I'm waiting for good weather is really what it is, because I just drew an interesting card. Frontal assault. Increase the command span of any force leader who enters an enemy zone of control by 2 for the remainder of the friendly player turn. Non-phasing forces defending against a frontal assault resolve their artillery bombardment at -1. Well, that allows me to get a little bit more force than I normally would in an attack. And if I'm going to give up this ground, launching an attack on Davout, hey, maybe I don't have to give it up, you know? Maybe I can send half the Russian force if I can wipe out. Now, I don't know that's Davout, but if I can wipe out a big portion of the French army down there, I might be able to keep it contained and still send a force that can do something against Napoleon. But as it stands right now, Napoleon's just, you know, rocking across the board, and there's nothing I can really do about it except give up this nice little cordon that I have. The French actually moved, or did a reaction, because I wanted to get guys like Bernadotte and Soule, if I can find him, moving. And now the situation looks really terrible for the Russians. Not getting a lot of playing in, mainly. I started a video game. I had two choices this weekend. Either devote a lot of the weekend to playing this game because I've got nothing else to do in my fucking life, or drown myself in a video game. And I think I'll be happier overall if I just leave this alone and putter through it at whatever rate. I'm not going to get out of this town. I don't give a shit enough. So I was a little wrong again about the command rules. One of the problems with these rules, it's not just that they're in two books, but that there's actually two sets in the exclusive rules as well. So I'll grant you the battle scenario builds off the other book, but it makes paging through because I know, well, I got one book of rules here and one book here, but the exclusive rules do have two different sections to them, which makes it harder to find stuff. In particular, the supply centers are covered in the exclusive rules first section, which corresponds to the rules in the original game, or in the original series or whatever, although I think this is the first game of the series, so it's kind of especially weird. But the second, all the rest of the command and control rules are pretty much either overwritten, and I don't think there's anything else that's special on here. The depots and stuff are all campaign game stuff. So I lost the fact that, gee, I can't spend commands coming from here. And I cheated this turn even after looking it up. Because this wasn't the active supply source. So I've shifted the active supply source. This shows up a problem. This thing could turn into a major general and march out and cut my supply line. So I really do have to keep something back there to cope with that. I'm not in too much danger of, Thorn falling, but until I get a better supply line built up, I have to deal with this. Unfortunately, it is a citadel, which means it would take a full siege to take. So I had to just mask it. Speaking of which, this is Napoleon, Bernadotte, and Rapp is close. And I've decided to throw out all the optional rolls. So I'm not going to have March to the Sound of the Guns. I'm not going to have the Battle Control, which is the one I keep forgetting to use. I don't know if I've done it or not. My intention was to use them, but the game has enough little picky and little shit in it already. So now I'm going to try to mask this, and I don't know what my odds are, but I guess I find out. This isn't good if I don't mask it, but I think I have to attack. Oh, by the way, Ney rolled for initiative movement and wandered off on his own. Which is kind of cool because he's getting close to the fortress. I have the Chasup card and found out for the first time that, hey, this isn't just something that he's made it over to Poland and he's going to help. No, he has to be played on a per siege basis, which doesn't seem too unreasonable given the way the sieges work. But it's really deploying him and the engineering team to the siege. So, I don't know what I've got. I have like 8 there. Here I have 2, 7, doesn't look good. And if I can find Bessier, or no, Bernadotte, 7, 8, 9. It looks like I have 10, and I had 8. So 10 to 8 is going to be 1 to 1. This is the first turn of the masking attempt, so I need a 4 or higher. I don't think there are any mods. And we don't get it. That's okay. I don't really need that for anything except if I didn't want to attack. Now I'm forced to attack. Now the Russians and Coalition chose not to play a card just because I don't want to. I'm set up here. Until I decide I'm getting out of there, there's not much for me to do. And here, I'm pretty much in a fixed position here too. So the question of how Lestat holds up is really, what this all revolves around. Part of it may be because of the, low density of battles in these games, but a lot of it also is just there's a much more complicated sequence of combat resolution in the games after the original Napoleon at Bay, and there may have been others in between that used the original system. What that means is I have to do something I hate, which is continuously look at the battle resolution table. Now, other games with very complicated combat resolutions, like World in Flames, I get used to eventually, and I assume I would with this too, except that there are so few battles, that it makes it really painful. And it makes it so that I don't want to move into battle, because it depresses my desire to actually activate forces and do things. Which is something I remember from every one of these games other than Napoleon at Bay, which was that, I don't think I want to do anything. Napoleon at Bay is the only one where the game system was clean enough that I was able to see the broad movements on the map in the way that I like to. Now I'm kind of seeing them here, maybe because I just played that one recently. Anyway. So, again, with experience, maybe this system would start to appeal to me, but it's too painful to get that experience, or has been over, 35 years or whatever I've been playing war games. And I saw one of these early enough. Not Napoleon at Bay, one of the others. Alright, so we designated our attacking force. We're designating the attack on the town. The big bonus here is the Prussians get to choose pitched battle. I think they will. The French will also not choose pitched battle because they cannot. Okay, what about a cav differential? Okay, Prussians only have one cav, so the French have the cav differential whenever that matters. Now we're on artillery fire. Now the weather is lousy, which means there's going to be a penalty to both sides' die rolls because the Prussians are not Russians. And we find this. Prussians only have one artillery, no cav superiority. They're not going to get a roll. The Froggies have 1, 2, and maybe more if I can find it. Okay, so they have 2 artillery. They have the cav superiority, which gives them a -1 to the die roll, so they're rolling it even. Does this make sense? I don't know. The heavy cav activity in the fortified town. Oh, geez, they're doubled. Cav differential doesn't apply. Artillery bombardment +2 into the fortified town. There's no firing. If there are any troops outside the fortified town, there are not, I don't think. Oh, no, he's too big. Yeah, he's got to fight outside. Oops. I should have left less troops in there, huh? Whatever. So we get a hit. I'll take that on an infantry, and being outside sucks because it means I'm going to lose the town, but yeah, I built up too big a force. Well, maybe I'll win the battle because I still have the modifying terrain. So I couldn't even mask that, I don't think. I don't know. I have no idea. So now I think we're at like 1-to-1. Damned if I can tell. Is that where we are? I've got to look at this fucking thing every time. Yeah. And inch my way through it. And I hate playing that way. I want games to just... I want the sequence of play to quickly come into my head. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a simple game. Something like the Victory Games Korean War or Victory Games the Civil War game. They both have a lot of complexity and subtlety to them because of the way that they operate with their pulses. But I'm not usually having to look everything up. Vietnam's a little different from the same company because it's got this really complex set of options. It's like looking at the fucking cards. You have to figure out what you're going to do on any given activation, and it's a pain in the ass to deal with. It's a beautiful game, but it's a pain in the ass. Okay, so I'm 1-to-1 in affecting. We both have a dot. I don't think anything happens. Got any modifiers here? I don't know. Who cares? Alright, so the attacker's boned. He takes 2 hits, the defender takes 1, the attacker gets to retreat. We're each going to actually be taking 1 hit because I don't think Lestat is going to follow him. So he's down to his 5, which means he can be in the town, but Napoleon and company are going to lose a strength point and retreat 2 axes. Okay, Russians, or French, or Prussians, let's try every nation here. Continue to refuse their flank, as it were, which is pushing more and more of what looks like a wedge between the Russian and Prussian forces. But the weather's still lousy. It's mud. That means I can't really move my big force, Bennigsen. I also have a little bit of a problem with him in that if I detach the infantry to hold the redoubt, it's all my weak forces that are left under my command. But I'm willing to take that chance. What I want to have happen is I want to launch an attack, see what happens, and then withdraw if need be, or partially withdraw, or else eliminate the rest of the French force, depending on what I can manage. Let me see. The French, both sides actually played cards with big movement allowances, really to only move 1 unit. For the Prussians, it was to get back here. We gave this up, which the French then advanced into. And for the French, it was really to activate Ney, who went wandering off in a direction I did not want again. Instead of heading to Danzig, where I want him to go, he's stumbling back towards the supply source. You get the feeling that Ney's been drinking too much in this campaign. That's really, when you start getting, random movement with leaders, that's really what you start to feel. It can all be explained, though. Every move he's taken made some sense. He's trying to secure this supply line somehow, but whatever. This one's going up as we move. Let's see, that was 27th of December. We're moving into the 30th of December, and the weather's getting potentially a little worse. Get a +5 on there. All right.